From the day my daughter was born, I could tell that she was something special. We named her Zoe, and she was the smartest baby I have ever seen. Every single month, I loved my special little girl more and more. But for some odd reason, my wife distanced herself away from Zoe every single month. By the 6th month, my wife barely even gave Zoe a glance. I can tell it made Zoe sad, but I didn't really want to bring it up. I just wanted my daughter to know that I loved her very much. Zoe said her first word when she was 3 months old. Daddy. She never really said mommy or even mom, but my wife never seemed to mind. If anything, she finally looked to be in a much better mood. By the time she was 6 months, Zoe started to walk. She would still fall sometimes, but I was completely blown away by how strong-willed her young mind was. Instead of crying whenever she fell, she would just pick herself back up and continue trying. On Zoe's first birthday, my wife was busy with work, so I shared a very special day with my daughter. I got her a chocolate cake for her to smash and devour. She didn't touch it, but she looked perfectly happy with staring at the cake with a look of wonder on her face. We spent the rest of the day playing with her presents until it was her bedtime. My wife didn't come home until 10 p.m. I asked her where she was, but she just put her hand up to my face and walked past me and into our bedroom. I sighed and watched TV until I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up to the sounds of my wife and Zoe talking. My wife was trying to get her to say mommy, but Zoe kept clapping her hands while saying daddy with a wide smile on her face. That was the last time my wife tried talking to Zoe. On the day of Zoe's 2nd birthday, my wife told me she was going to stay later at work. I tried begging and reasoning with her to stay, but she just told me it wasn't worth it. I heard sniffles from behind me when my wife left the house. I turned around to see a tear-stricken Zoe staring out the door. She asked me if mommy didn't love her, but I just hugged her and told her that we both loved her very much. After I pulled away from the hug, Zoe asked me, "Why doesn't she talk to me?" I told her that mommy was just stressed and to not let it bug her. I got her another cake, but she told me that she didn't like to eat cake. She thought it was too pretty to destroy. With a nod, I left the cake on the dining room table and took out 3 brightly colored bags from under the table. We have this tradition where I take out the presents for her and rip the paper as carefully as possible. She liked using the wrapping paper as little decorations for her room. The first 2 presents were just little bow sets and a couple of new books. The third I always wanted a little sister. I would beg my parents, please, please, and they'd roll their eyes at me and tell me that it wasn't as simple as I thought. That didn't stop me from asking about it every chance I got though. When they brought Sarah home, it was the happiest day of my life. She was so cute, I couldn't wait to share my toys with her. I started going through them, deciding which ones were hers and which ones mine. I borrowed my daddy's label maker and started putting our names on each thing so we wouldn't get them confused. She cried a lot at first. I'd asked my parents why she cried so much and they told me it was natural. They said when she got used to us and our house, she would calm down and not cry at all. Sometimes though, she'd cry so loud that Daddy would have to take it into the basement where it was soundproof so the neighbours wouldn't complain. She slept in Mommy and Daddy's bed for the first month. Sometimes I tried to join them, but they'd always lock their door. Mommy said their bed wasn't big enough for us all to sleep in. I was patient. I knew the new bed with the bars that they'd set up in my room would eventually be hers. When they felt it was safe to let us sleep on our own, they started putting her in it. She wasn't crying so much anymore by then. And I would lie in my bed and watch her sleep from across the room. They'd take her into the bedroom first and lay with her until she fell asleep, then move to our room. Some nights, after she was moved, I'd see her lying there with her eyes open, just staring at the ceiling. So I'd go over and give her toys through the bars. A lot of the time she'd just throw the toy and then start crying, and I'd have to hide under my covers before Daddy came in to deal with her. Eventually, they started letting Sarah sit with me in the playroom. I was told that I wasn't allowed to give her anything too small or sharp that she could hurt herself with. Oh, I was so happy. I would sit behind her and brush her hair and tell her that she was the best little sister in the world. I showed her which toys were hers and which were mine, but she didn't seem to care. Sometimes we'd sit on the window seat and she'd bang on the window while I drew on it with special crayons. School started back up at Sugar Creek Elementary, and I went, but Sarah had to stay at home. Mommy said she wasn't ready for school yet. I'd come home and tell Sarah all the stuff I learned. I drew pictures of us playing together. When I showed them to Daddy, he'd tell me to thank you and take them to keep in his office. Then came the really bad day. I'll never forget it. I came home from school and Mommy was just sitting at the table, smoking. She looked really sad. I went to play with Sarah but couldn't find her. When I went to ask Mommy where she was, she started crying. I asked her what was wrong and she said that Sarah was gone. I didn't understand totally, but I started crying too and told her we need to find her. She shook her head and said she was gone somewhere where we couldn't go. Daddy took her bed apart. He threw away all the drawings with her in them. He took my name tags off all the toys. Sometimes I'd find one he missed and it'd make me cry. I started collecting them and hiding them, but he found where I hid them one day by accident and got really mad. We weren't allowed to talk about her. It was like she never existed. I didn't think it was fair. I told Mommy that Daddy was mean to make us not talk about Sarah, but she said it was better that way, and I would understand when I was older. I saw Sarah again. It was just one time, but I'll never forget it. I was with my mommy doing some errands when we went grocery shopping, then went to the fabric store in Thornton so Mommy could look at the materials to make some new curtains out of. She remembered that she had letters to mail, so we stopped at the post office to buy some stamps. I was humming to myself and read posters while Mommy talked to the lady behind the counter. And that's when I saw Sarah. She was cute as I remembered. I walked over and looked at the poster with her picture, but they'd gotten her name wrong. Someone had written her name down as Shannon. I rushed over to Mommy and tugged on her sleeve and told her that Sarah was up on the wall with other pictures of children, but she got all flustered and apologized to the lady before dragging me out of the post office. I had to shout because she kept trying to talk over me instead of listening. "I saw Sarah! They got a picture on the wall in there!" Finally, Mommy slapped me and told me it wasn't Sarah and that it may have looked like Sarah, but I was mistaken, and if I didn't stop, I'd get in real trouble with Daddy when he got home. I cried and promised to be good. But even after I promised, I wasn't allowed to have dinner, and I had to sit in my room that night. I heard Mommy and Daddy talking in the kitchen, and they got kind of loud. Somebody started banging open the kitchen drawers, and then my daddy's feet stomped up the stairs. But I heard Mommy scream, "Don't you dare!" And he stopped outside my room and then went back downstairs. We never went back to that post office, and I never saw Sarah again. This is the first time I've talked about Sarah since that day. I must have been 6 or 7 when I lived in Lebanon. The country was ravaged by war at the time, and murders were common and frequent. I remember during a particular vicious era, when the bombings rarely stopped, I would stay at home sitting in front of my television, watching a very strange show. It was a kids' show that lasted about 30 minutes and contained strange and sinister images. To this day, I believed it was a thinly veiled attempt on the part of the media to use scare tactics to keep kids in place. Because the moral of every episode revolved around very uptight ideologies. Stuff like, bad kids stay up late, bad kids have their hands under the covers when they sleep, and bad kids steal food from the fridge at night. It was very weird, and in Arabic to top it off. I didn't understand much of it, but for the most part, the images were very graphic and comprehensive. The thing that stuck with me the most, however, was the closing scene. It remained much the same in every episode. The camera would zoom in on an old, rusted closed door. As it got closer to the door, strange and sometimes even agonizing screams would become more audible. It was extremely frightening, especially for a children's program. Then, a text would appear on the screen in Arabic reading, "That's where bad kids go." Eventually, both the image and the sound would fade out, and that would be the end of the episode. About 15 or 16 years later, I became a journalistic photographer. That show had been in my mind all my life, popping up in my thoughts sporadically. Eventually, I'd had enough and decided to do some research. I finally managed to uncover the location of the studio where much of that channel's programming had been recorded. Upon further research and eventually travelling on site, I found out it was now desolate and had been abandoned after the big war ended. I entered the building with my camera. It was burnt from the inside. Either a fire had broken out or someone had wanted to incinerate all of the wooden furniture. After a few hours of cautiously making my way into the studio and snapping pictures, I found an isolated, out-of-the-way room. After having to break through a few old locks and managing to break a heavy door open, I remained frozen in the doorway for several long minutes, traces of blood, feces, and tiny bone fragments lay scattered across the floor. It was a small room, and an extremely morbid scene. What truly frightened me, though, what made me turn away and never want to come back, was the bolted, caged microphone hanging from the roof in the middle of the room. I had an awesome childhood. Like most kids growing up in the 90s, my TV schedule consisted mostly of SpongeBob, Power Rangers, and Transformers. For the most part, I wasn't into really kiddie shows like Barney or Mr. Rogers or anything like that. But the other day, I was talking with my mom about when I was a little kid. At one point during the conversation, she brought up the topic of an old TV show I sometimes watched. It was called Stubbs Clubhouse. I was unaware of the show she was referring to at first, but then the memories came flying back. I remembered it so clearly almost instantly. Basically, Stubbs Clubhouse was a cheesy, low-budget kids show starring a clown named Stub. He had a rainbow-coloured jacket, a hat, and, if my memory serves, he wore black pants with stars on them. The show was kind of a rip-off of Pee-wee's Playhouse. Even I as a young kid could tell that. Basically, Stub lived in a big clubhouse, which, strangely enough, looked just like a normal house. I assumed that was due to their low budget. Stub had a group of friends who lived in the playhouse. I don't remember much, but I vaguely remember a poodle and a man in a really badly made elephant costume. Like I said, I don't remember much about the show. I didn't watch it very much, mainly for two reasons. It aired at a very strange and late time, around 10:30, which is bizarre for a kids show. It only aired on a really obscure channel called Channel Bebo, which only aired shows for about 3 years. Then, the channel was shut down for unknown reasons. The only other thing I remember about the show was the theme song was sung by a woman who sounded like she was half asleep while singing it, and the background music was played entirely on a xylophone. In around November of 2006, I had just turned 14. This was a few days after the conversation with my mom, and I decided to treat myself to a little trip to half-price books. See, I like half-price books more than Barnes & Nobles because you can find older books and movies as opposed to up-to-date stuff at B&N. So, I was browsing through the videotapes, searching for a tape of one of my favourite shows, Street Sharks, a show about anthropomorphic sharks that fought crime. I was going through the tapes in alphabetical order, and I had just reached the S section when something caught my eye. It was a tape labelled Stubbs Clubhouse. The case had no logo or picture to indicate it was Stub. It was just a plain bland case that had a piece of tape on the side with Stubbs Clubhouse written on it in black Sharpie. I was still kind of curious about this show that I had barely remembered, and plus I couldn't find Street Sharks, so I decided to buy Stub. It was pretty cheap, even for a half-price books tape, being only 75 cents. But hey, it was a bargain, so I took it to the checkout counter. The woman working there looked at the tape, and then stared at me. She timidly asked, "Are you sure you want to buy this tape?" I politely said yes, and she rung it up. I went home and got out my VCR and hooked it up to the TV in the living room where my 6-year-old sister, Emily, was playing with Barbies. She asked me what I was doing, and I told her that I had gotten a tape at half-price books that we could watch together. I put in the tape and the standard copyright infringement warning message came up as usual. The tape started off at the theme song of the first episode, complete with xylophone music and sleepy singer. The episode started out in the clubhouse where Stubb introduced himself and told the viewers that we were going on a field trip. There was a very bad rough cut to a playground in the middle of a grassy park. There was a group of small children, about as old as my sister, playing on a merry-go-round. Stubb walked up to them, and they all ran to give him hugs. After that, Stubb looked at the cameraman and asked if the kids at home would like to play too. As assumed, Emily piped up, "Yes," and Stubb replied, "Alright yo, then come on down to the playground and play with me." Emily asked me if she could go to the playground with Stubb, but I told her that this was filmed. However, I saw something interesting out the corner of my eye. We have a playground in our neighbourhood, about a block from our house, but close enough that we can see it from our living room. It took me a second to make the connection, but it hit me that the playground in the video was the same playground in our neighbourhood. Then it hit me even more. The same children in the show were playing on our playground right now. They were wearing the same clothes as they were in the video, and they were performing the exact same actions, almost as if the video were being filmed live. Then I noticed something that disturbed me greatly. In the video, one of the children was holding Stubb's hand, and when I looked out of the window, the same child was making a motion like he was holding someone's hand, but there was no one there. I was shocked. I immediately ejected the tape, much to Emily's sadness, as she was beginning to grow fond of the show. I took the tape and threw it in the garbage. I thought I was done with Stubb. But I was wrong. The next day, when my mom picked up Emily from kindergarten, Emily told me that Stubb had been following their car, driving a black van. She said she had looked out the back window and saw Stubb behind the wheel of the van. She told me that she had told Mom, but Mom didn't see any cars or vans whatsoever in her rearview mirror. Emily told me she was confused and somewhat worried. I told her not to worry and to try and relax and let an adult handle the situation. That night, I went against my best judgment and decided to fish the tape out of the trash and watch episode 2. The theme song started, but something was wrong. The xylophone was very distorted, and the woman's voice was a lot deeper and a bit messed up as well. The title came up, and the colours were more dull, being composed of shades of brown and grey, rather than the usual bright red and yellow. I decided to brush it off as a messed up tape and continued watching. It roughly cut to a still of Stubb staring at the camera. After a while, I realised it wasn't a still image. It was a video of Stubb sitting, motionless, and staring directly at the viewer. Stubb would periodically turn his head as if cracking his stiff neck, but he would never blink. He did this the entire episode, which lasted around 20 minutes. But right before the episode ended, Stubb closed his eyes tightly while still staring, and then opened them to reveal pitch black eyes. Nothing but inky blackness within his sockets. Suddenly, the tape cut to a picture of a house. My house. I frantically ejected the tape once more and stuck it in the drawer. I looked out the window at where the cameraman would have been. There was neither anything nor a trace of anyone there. I tried to go to sleep that night, but I just couldn't. I ended up sneaking downstairs in the middle of the night and sitting in the kitchen, with the light on and a huge supply of caffeinated drinks. The morning soon came, and I was safe for a while. Unexpectedly, the rest of the day went off with no strange occurrences. Emily didn't see Stubb following them in his van, which was an enormous relief, and a bit of hope that this might be over. But that night, I woke up in what could be described as conscious sleepwalking, meaning I got up in the middle of the night and did something while being fully conscious and aware, but still drawn to do the thing by some urge. I subconsciously took the tape from the drawer and placed it back into the VCR. I sat down on the couch and suddenly awoke from my sleep. I noticed I was on the couch, about to watch the tape. I wanted to take the tape out and go back upstairs, but a strange urge or force told me I needed to watch the final episode. Episode 3. The opening started, and this time, it was totally different. The xylophone had been replaced with a loud banging, and the voice had now become a deep, demonic sounding voice, singing lyrics in a language I couldn't understand. The title came up, and the title card looked like it had been slashed by the claws of some large animal. When the episode turned on, Stubb was sitting at a table with some children. He asked the children if they wanted to play a game, and they eagerly said yes. Stubb reached under the table and revealed a large carving knife. He asked one of the children to place their arm on the table. A small girl did, and Stubb asked, "Tell me how this feels." He then began to slowly slice a thin layer of flesh from the girl's arm, like he was peeling a potato. Blood immediately began to flow, and the room was filled with sounds of the girl's screams. The other children didn't run. They just watched, calmly, as if they wanted to actually see the rest. He asked the girl, "Doesn't it feel happy?" Stubb continued to slice layer after layer of flesh from the girl's arm until he hit bone. The girl was wailing like a banshee at this point, and I was in absolute shock. I felt like I would violently throw up at any moment. The girl's arm was drenched in blood, which had spilled onto the table and created a puddle on the tabletop. Stubb started laughing in a happy, clown-like way, and the video ended. However, it then cut to another video. It was a video of Emily's room, right now. She was sound asleep. Standing over her bed and looking down at her was Stubb. Suddenly, he looked at the camera with inky black eyes in his sockets. North Carolina is a hub for abandoned places. By now, you may have heard the tale of Mowgli's Palace, a very real place with horrors on a grandiose scale. However, Disney's skeletons aren't the only ones in the closet. In 1970, a theme park called Land of Oz was opened in Beach Mountain, North Carolina. It wasn't the product of a big corporation, just a local attempt to bring in tourists for year-round fun. The place included not only a ski resort, but a variety of rides and roller coasters. 20,000 people came on the opening day. The park became an instant hit and was the Southeast's best attraction in its first year. Everything went downhill from there. Profits began to drop off, and owner's death complicated matters even further. Eventually, the graduation of these events forced the park to be purchased by a company called Carolina Caribbean Corp. The housing market needed a boost, and a subdivision was planned to be put in place of the attraction. There are reports that the cast of the employees who played the park's characters have been joining together for reunions since 2010. Photos from these reunions were later proven fake. The company had made another unsuccessful attempt to cover up their mistakes and clear their names. They never built that subdivision. Over the years, the park began to fall into disrepair. What made them leave? In 1975, the Emerald City section of the park suffered a fire.
Please leave all overcoats, canes, and top hats with the doorman. From that moment you'll be out of place and under duress. I'm wrecking this evening already and loving every minute of it, ruining this banquet for the mildly inspiring end. Please leave all overcoats, canes, and top hats with the doorman. From that moment you'll be out of place and under duress. I'm wrecking this evening already and loving every minute of it, ruining this banquet for the mildly inspiring end. When you're in black slacks with accentuating off-white pinstripes, whoa, everything goes according to plan. I'm the new cancer, never look better, you can't stand it, because you say so under your breath to your reading lips. When did he get all confident? Haven't you heard that? I'm the new cancer, never look better, and you can't stand it. Next is a trip to the ladies' room in vain, and I bet you just can't keep up with fashionistas. And tonight you are a whispering campaign. I bet to them your name is cheap, I bet to them you look like sheep. Talk to the mirror, oh, choke back tears, and keep telling yourself that I'm a diva. Oh, and the smoke's in that cigarette box on the table, they just so happen to be laced with nitroglycerin. I'm the new cancer, never look better, you can't stand it, because you say so under your breath to your reading lips. When did he get all confident? Haven't you heard that? I'm the new cancer, never look better, and you can't stand it. I've never looked better, and you can't stand it. Haven't you heard that I'm the new cancer? I've never looked better, and you can't stand it. And I know, it just doesn't feel like a night out with no one sizing you up. I've never been so surreptitious, so of course I'll be distracted when I spike the punch. And I know, it just doesn't feel like a night out with no one sizing you up. I've never been so surreptitious, so of course I'll be distracted when I spike the punch. And I know, it just doesn't feel like a night out with no one sizing you up. I've never been so surreptitious, so of course I'll be distracted when I spike the punch.
Remove the gag and step away. He's suffocating. You pull the strings day after day. That's why he needs a break from you, bitch. Your ass to do a break from you, bitch. Your ass is through. Oh, I hope he hears these words. Maybe this time he will learn. You should escape, skip down. No more excuses. Abandon ship or drown. No more excuses. Do you even have a plan of attack? A way to react? Oh no, you should escape, skip down. You're better on your own. Okay, we get it. You're both a happy couple. Why else go through the trouble of posting it 10 times a day? Break from you, bitch. Your ass is due. We need a break from you, bitch. Your ass is through. Oh, I hope he hears these words. Maybe this time he will learn. You should escape, skip down. No more excuses. Abandon ship or drown. No more excuses. Do you even have a plan of attack? A way to react? Oh no, you should escape, skip down. You're better on your own. If you're both in black and white, and they ask who dares defy, I'll be raising my hand high, 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 high.
If anyone should object to this marriage, please speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, I got something to say. You should escape, skip down. No more excuses. Abandon ship or drown. No more excuses. Do you even have a plan of attack? A way to react? Oh no, you should escape, skip down. You're better on your own. Better on your own. You're
shoulders, don't approve a single word that we wrote. Well, we're just a wet dream through the web scene. Make us hit, make us hit, make us scene. Or shrug us off your shoulders, don't approve a single word that we wrote. I'm burning and I'm black in my lungs. Boy, you know it feels good with fire back on your tongue. If you talk, you better walk, you better back your shit up with more than good hooks while you're all under the gun. Start talking a sensationalist. Oh, he's slightly clever to just a certain extent. Whoa, keep quiet, let us sing like the dogs. Then decide if you're done with purpose or lack thereof. Just for the record, the weather today is slightly sarcastic with a good chance of A. Indifference of B, disinterest in what the critics say. It's time for us to take a chance. It's time for us. Well, we're just a wet dream for the web scene. Make us hit, make us hit, make us scene. Or shrug us off your shoulders, don't approve a single word that we wrote. Well, we're just a wet dream for the web scene. Make us hit, make us hit, make us scene. Or shrug us off your shoulders, don't approve a single word that we wrote. Just for the record, the weather today is slightly sarcastic with a good chance of A. Indifference to B, disinterest in what the critics say. Well, we're just a wet dream for the web scene. Make us hit, make us hit, make us scene. Or shrug us off your shoulders, don't approve a single word that we wrote. Well, we're just a wet dream for the web scene. Make us hit, make us hit, make us scene. Or shrug us off your shoulders, don't approve a single word that we wrote. Just for the record, the weather today is slightly sarcastic with a good chance of A. Indifference of B, disinterest in what the critics say. Is it still me that makes you sweat? Am I who you think about in bed? When the lights are dim and your hands are shaking as you're sliding off your dress. Think of what you did and how I hope to God he was worth it. When the lights are dim and your heart is racing as your fingers touch. I got more wit, a better kiss, hotter touch, a better fuck than any boy you'll ever meet. Sweetie, you had me. Girl, I was it, look past the sweat. A better love deserving of exchanging body heat in the passenger seat. No, 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 you know it will always just be me. Let's get these teen hearts beating faster, faster. Some testosterone boys and hard-looking girls. Will you dance to this beat and hold a lover close? Some testosterone boys and hard-looking girls. Will you dance to this beat and hold a lover close? So I guess we're back to us. So cameraman, swing the focus in case I lost my train of thought. Where was it that we last left off? Oh, now I do recall we were just getting to the part where the shock sets in and the stomach acid finds a new way to make you get sick. I hope you didn't expect to get all of the attention. Let's not get selfish. Did you really think I'd let you kill this chorus? Let's get these teen hearts beating faster, faster. So testosterone boys and hard-looking girls. Will you dance to this beat and hold a lover close? So testosterone boys and hard-looking girls. Will you dance to this beat and hold a lover close? Dance to this beat. Dance to this beat. Dance to this beat. Let's get these teen hearts beating faster, faster. Let's get these teen hearts beating faster. I've got more wit, a better kiss, hotter touch, a better fuck than any boy you'll ever meet. Sweetie, you had me. Girl, I was it, look past the sweat. Better love deserving of exchanging body heat in the passenger seat. No, 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 you know it will.
Come on in, boy, set the skeletons hours, sitting by her closet door. Dirty secrets, empty memories, and broken hearts across the floor. I was knocked out, heels overhead, so you dragged me by my feet to a ghost town where you buried me. No wonder no one heard my screams. Love so alive, but it died in its sleep. And now that it's dead, I live in your head, and I will haunt your fucking dreams. No one will love you like I did, will treat you like I did. So go on where that started, let her. No one will love you like I did, will touch you like I did. So good luck finding something better. Run away, boy, if you couldn't tell. Baby's got a thirst for blood, a subtle system, wicked melodies, craving bullets from her gut.
have to know. I'm sorry, every song's about you. The torture of small talk with someone you used to love.
It was the 4th of July. You were doing fireworks, staring off to the sun. And I miss you in the jungle tonight. It was the 4th of July. You were doing fireworks. I said I never whistle, but I guess you never know me. The bridges I have burned on my way back home on the 4th of July.
Come save me from walking off a windowsill, or I'll sleep in the rain. Don't you remember when I was a bird and you were a map?
Johnny, don't leave me. You said you'd love me forever. Honey, believe me, I'll have your heart on a platter. Might you recall, we've got a small family business, and the family won't like this. They'll bust your kneecaps, ooh, up-dee-doo, up-dee-doo. They'll bust your kneecaps, ooh, up-dee-doo, up-dee-doo. Johnny, you told me you were no fool, you were no chump. Then you got cold feet. Now all you'll be is a speed bump. It's something we call, oh, just a small family business, and the family won't like this. They'll bust your kneecaps, ooh, up-dee-doo, up-dee-doo. They'll bust your kneecaps, that's what they're going to do. Johnny, there's still time. Together I know we'd go so far. I'll tell Uncle Rocco to call off the guys with the crowbars. You call it crime, we call it smart family business, and the family is famous. Let's bust some kneecaps. Bust your kneecaps. Ooh.
stop staring at my eyelids, but even though my eyes closed, I still see you. I just hope that when you see me, I'm not see-through. You know how we do. Sometimes I swear I need a day just for me to lay with some TNA. But the way we do is deeper, baby. Straight up chemistry, DNA. Make me wanna give you every dollar out my B of A. Like, I let her climb on top. I'm either fucking or working, so the grind don't stop. They say I got screws missing, well hell, only when I'm missing you. And hell yeah, I'm a dick girl, addicted to you. They're gonna clean up your looks with all the lies in the books to make a citizen out of you. Because they sleep with a gun and keep an eye on you, son, so they can watch all the things you do. Because the drugs never work, they gonna give you a smirk, cause they got methods of keeping you clean. They gonna rip up your heads, your aspirations to shreds. Another cog in the murder machine. They said I'm teenagers scare the living shit out of me. They could care less as long as someone will bleed. So darken your clothes, I'll strike a violent pose. Maybe to lead you alone, but not me. The boys and girls in the clique, the awful names at the stick. You're never gonna fit in much, kid. But if you're troubled and hurt, what you got under your shirt will make them pay for the things that they did. They said, "Now teenagers scare the living shit out of me." They could care less as long as someone will bleed. So darken your clothes, I'll strike a violent pose. Maybe to leave you alone, but not me. Oh, yeah. remind me of a former love that I once knew, and you carry a little piece with you. We were holding hands walking through the middle of the street. It's fine with me, I'm just taking in the scenery. You remind me of a few of my famous friends. Well, that all depends what you qualify as friends. You remind me of a few of my famous friends. Well, that all depends what you qualify as friends. Take a chance, take your shoes off, dance in the rain. I was splashing around, and the news spread all over town. I'm not complaining that it's raining, I'm just saying that I like it a lot more than you think. If the sun would come out and sing with me, you remind me of a few of my famous friends. Well, that all depends what you qualify as friends. You remind me of a few of my famous friends. Well, that all depends what you qualify as friends. I'm gonna need you to keep time. Come on, just snap, snap, snap your fingers for me. Good, good, now we're making some progress. Come on, just tap, tap, tap your toes to the beat. And I believe this may call for a proper introduction. And well, don't you see, I'm the narrator and this is just the prologue. Swear to shake it up if you swear to listen. I aim to be your eyes, trophy boys, trophy wives. Swear to stick it up and you try to listen. Oh, we're still so young, desperate for attention. I aim to be your eyes, trophy boys, trophy wives. Applause, applause, no wait, wait. Dear studio audience, I've an announcement to make. It seems the artists these days are not who you think, so we'll pick back up on that on another page. And I believe this may call for a proper introduction. And well, don't you see, I'm the narrator and this is just the prologue. Swear to shake it up if you swear to listen. We're still so young, desperate for attention. I aim to be your eyes, trophy boys, trophy wives. Swear to shake it up if you swear to listen. We're still so young, desperate for attention.
it's hard. You're feeling like you're trapped, but that's how you react when you cannot see the light, but try and see the light. I'm telling you, no, 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 you're the only one standing in your way. Just take a breath, relax. Tell me why, please tell me why do we worry? Why do we worry at all? Why, just tell me why do we worry when worries never happen? Tell me why worry at all? Why do we insist on crossing bridges that do not exist? Let's take these issues step by step by step to work it out. Day by day by day we're falling down, but life goes on. I've got some questions. Are you sick of feeling so wrecked? And people saying not to worry. Sick of hearing this Hakuna Matata motto from people who want a lot of but not like it. Have you noticed that you're breathing? Look around and catch your blessings. So when you're sick of all the stressing and guessing, I'm suggesting you turn this up and let them hear you sing it. Why? Please tell me why do we worry? Why do we worry at all? Why? Just tell me why do we worry when worries never happen? Tell me why worry at all? Chin up, quit acting like you're half dead. Tears can only half fill. How you feeling? Don't worry, be happy, baby. Stand up. Life was too damn short. That clock is ticking right up. If you feel me, everybody sing it. Why? Please tell me why do we worry? Why do we worry at all? Why? Just tell me why do we worry when worries never happen? Tell me why worry at all? Please tell me why do we worry? Why do we worry at all? Just tell me why do we worry when worries never happen? I'm not buying what they're selling, so if worries never happen, tell me why worry at all?
Watch your mouth, oh, because your speech is slurred enough that you just might swallow your tongue. I'm sure you would want to give up the ghost with just a little more poison than. Or was it God who chokes in these situations? Running late, oh no, he called in. Or was it God who chokes in these situations? Running late, oh no, he called in. The hospice is a relaxing weekend getaway where you're a cut above all the rest. Sick and sad patients on first name basis with all the top physicians. Prescribe pills.
Stuck in the jet wash. Bad trip, I couldn't get a bit off
but aggressive. Take note, it's not impressive. Empty your sadness like you're dumping your purse on